Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah and this is the Sarah Experience. Now on TikTok, everything that is over and it's old and was trendy back then is trendy back now again. And one of those clearly is the Vampire Diaries. I grew up watching the Vampire Diaries and I absolutely loved it, but now rewatching it from time to time, I see there are some things that are off about it. And to be honest, I found something that is even better. Actually, way better. In fact, I'm here to tell you 10 reasons why True Blood is way better than the Vampire Diaries. I won't make spoilers about True Blood because I understand that many people haven't watched this, so I'll just be general in here. I might say some things about the Vampire Diaries that might be spoilers, but if you have already watched it, no problem. Anyways, it won't be two big things. Without further ado, let's get started. They're both vampire series inspired by books. The Vampire Diaries is a book by Lisa Jane Smith, while True Blood is inspired by the Stefan Vampire Mysteries, which is a saga written by Charlene Harris. They're both 13 books longer, if not more. Definitely the Vampire Diaries series is way longer than the True Blood, but they're both long. But one is clearly better. The True Blood series is way more fun, way more exciting, is longer, has more details, and a really good thing about it is that it's very similar to the show. Although, actually, the book is more limited in the sense that we only get Sookie's point of view, the protagonist, and in the show, which I'll explain more, but the other characters have their own storylines and they are way more developed than in the book. I also talked about a couple of these books in other videos that you can find here and in the info box down below. Instead, the Vampire Diaries books are the most boring thing I've ever read. I mean, not the most boring, but they're very close to it. The Vampire Diaries ones are boring, short, pointless, and totally different from the TV show. Barely the characters are the same. They don't have the same characteristics. They don't behave the same way, apart from Elena, but we'll talk about that later. They're like really boring. I don't want to shame the author because she really worked on them and they're very famous, but I don't like them. But this is just my personal opinion. What's a very memorable thing that you see in a show and you remember forever? The intro. Well, True Blood has a better one too. Look at this. It has a song, it's long, which I like, and it really represents the show itself. The Vampire Diaries instead is just a title with a very nice font and a 2-second song. Number 3. Now, the main reason, the most important one, about True Blood, which makes it better than the Vampire Diaries, is its plot. Because the plot doesn't just revolve around the main character, storyline, and problems, but actually revolves around the whole community of vampires that finally shown their existence to humanity and now are trying to coexist with humans without eating them or drinking them, and trying to re-enter society and trying to gain rights as beings. They're not humans anymore and they're not living, but they want rights because they exist. And that's awesome because you see the political aspect of that, the human social interaction aspect of that, the acceptance, the non-acceptance, and struggling to actually eat and drink and sustain each other and much, much more. So it's not just about Sookie's Steakhouse and her drama. Love drama, which there still is, but not as much in the Vampire Diaries. And to be honest and fair, the Vampire Diaries is all about Elena and her love drama between Damon and Stefan. Or I should say Stefan and Damon. True Blood has a wide look on the community aspect, not only on vampires, but also in general of the supernatural creatures, and shows how they interact with each other, and generally how they interact with humans, and how humans are trying to merge and coexist with vampires. And it shows both extremes. Those who absolutely hate vampires, like the church, well, the Sun Church, and the ones who absolutely love vampires. Most of Boomtown is in between the two extremes, between loving and hating. Boomtown is the city when True Blood is set. It's a small town nearby New Orleans in Louisiana, whilst The Vampire Diaries is set, as we all know, in Mystic Falls in Virginia. Number 4 is clearly the audience. Now, The Vampire Diaries is clearly made for teenagers. That's why you see it on TV when you were young, at 2 in the afternoon after you came home from school, and you just watched it because it's vampires, yes, but there's not actually a lot of blood, not a lot of killing, and anyways, it's not very in your face. But anyways, the reason why True Blood isn't as famous as The Vampire Diaries is because its audience is clearly older than that, older than teenagers, due to its themes and very explicit sex scenes. But to be honest, now that I've grown up, I very much enjoy True Blood, and not just because of the sex scenes, which going on with the seasons, they lose importance and less screen time, and the character development gains even more screen time than the sex, which is also a big part of that as a sexual discovering through the characters and a way to express themselves. So it's a grown-up show, I guess, although it still has maybe some childish moments, but that's up to you to decide. True Blood allowed itself to cover some deep topics and important conversations that The Vampire Diaries can't quite have because of its young target. True Blood manages to talk about racism towards minorities, and whether that's black, queer people, or even vampires or supernatural creatures, it doesn't matter. As long as you're different to the majority of people, you're going to be bullied, which is bad and wrong, and True Blood takes care of that in different ways that are really appreciated. But also, it can talk about the church and how the message of the church can be twisted by people that are too obsessed with themselves and what they think is right, without actually thinking whether it's right or not. I don't want to get too much into this because I don't want to make spoilers, but there's the church viewed by vampires, which is a very interesting topic. There is the Vampire Bible, and that showed how they were created. Vampire Diaries shows how vampires were created, but that is strictly magic related, whilst not necessarily the vampires in True Blood. We also see the problems of addiction and recovering from it in True Blood, and how trauma affects the mental health and what consequences it gets. And it doesn't just go away like in Vampire Diaries. For example, the beginning, Elena has dead parents. Well, she's sad, she might be depressed, but that's pretty much it. Then she falls in love with Stefan, and everything gets better until she discovers he's a vampire. And then her parents, spoiler, die again. Well, the real parents. And she's not that mad about it. I mean, as far as I remember, maybe she was. But the psychological part of people is not developed enough in the Vampire Diaries. At least that's my take on it. Number 6. Now, let's talk about the main characters. Everyone knows Elena Gilbert.
I'm Elena.
Lonely, sad, orphan girl who has a brother, Jeremy, who falls in love with a vampire and then discovers that that vampire has another evil vampire brother, and things develop from here. We know Elena because we hate her. Like, most of us hate her. She doesn't really understand the situation. She makes pretty stupid decisions. We don't look up to her as a role model. But in True Blood, we have Sookie Steakhouse.
My name is Sookie Stackhouse. I'm a waitress and I'm in love with a vampire, which seems
a strong, independent woman who's not that stupid and who can absolutely stick up for herself and fight for what's right. And she just knows what she wants and fights for it. Sookie Steakhouse is a working person. Okay, she's 25, Elena is like 16 at the beginning, 14, who knows. But we see the very different stages. Maybe Elena one day will get where Sookie is at the beginning, but I doubt it. Now, Sookie is a waitress. She works her ass off to sustain herself. She's not rich. Elena had money. She never had problems with money. Sookie quite does. The 7 reasons why True Blood is better than the Vampire Diaries are absolutely and incredibly definitely the secondary characters. We have in the Vampire Diaries all Elena's friends that absolutely live for her. Their life revolves around her. Sometimes they can have their own problems, but at some point they'll go back to being shadowed by Elena's. Poor Matt, for example, he absolutely found himself caught in her drama and will never get out of it.
Let's not get crazy.
True Blood, every secondary character has their own storyline, has its own storyline that evolves regardless of Sookie. And in the show, they're just real friends. They're there when she needs them, and she's there when they need her. That's it. They really go their own ways, and we see that. So Sookie is the protagonist, but everyone else in the show has their own spot under the spotlight, which is really cool. Number 8. Let's talk about vampires now. Well, we know what vampires in the Vampire Diaries are. They basically are superhumans who occasionally drink blood, but they can eat any food, they can drink alcohol, they just function as human beings. But they're super strong, super fast, they heat fast, and they have to wear a sun ring or some sort of magical object that allows them not to burn in the sun. So that's basically it. They're amazing. In fact, I would become a vampire if the vampires of the Vampire Diaries were real. I would, because you only gain. I mean, you live forever, you're beautiful, you literally live forever, you're gorgeous, and you can eat normal food, which is awesome. The only thing they have is they're allergic to the vervain plant. That's their weak spot. Apart from that, what's going on in there? Apart from sun and a werewolf bite, which can only be cured by Klaus Michelson blood, but that's another story. True Bloods vampires, they are the real vampires. Because whereas DVD vampires can walk in the sun with the ring that I was talking about, True Blood ones absolutely cannot. There is no spell that can allow them to walk in the sun, which makes them real vampires. They can only live at night, as the folklore tales always said. Plus, they only really drink blood, and they cry blood, which is an awesome thing that I love. Also, when they die for whatever reason, they explode in flesh and blood.
You fucking...
Instead of just turning to dust. They are not allergic to vervain, but they react really badly in contact with silver. So yeah, silver is their weak spot, and sunlight, of course. They literally burn and explode. And they need to drink blood pretty much every day, which, an important thing of True Blood that I forgot to say is why it's called True Blood. Since vampires came out of the shadow and are known to exist by humans created this synthetic blood, and the most quality one is certainly the True Blood, but there are other brands like Pure Blood and other ones. So the synthetic blood allows vampires not to have to drink human blood anymore. Number 9, we have the importance of a maker. In the Vampire Diaries, we only see this link when Damon turns Elena into a vampire. She feels attracted to him and she is willing to do whatever he says because of this link, but eventually she will be able to break it, just with some willpower, I guess. In True Blood instead, there is a very, very, very important link for both parts. For example, the most important one, the most relevant one that we see in the show is Eric and Pam's. So Eric is the maker of Pam, and when a vampire creates another vampire, they are linked, and the maker can call a vampire whenever he wants, just by pronouncing its name. It doesn't matter where the created one is, the maker can just pronounce their name, and the vampire is almost attracted by magic to go to its maker in order to do what he says. But also just a trust and loyalty relationship between them. And this link, very, very important link, can be cut by the maker that will say the words "I let you go" or something like that. You are free to go. And in that case, the obligations then the creator one has towards the maker fall, and the maker has no longer power on the created. The last but not least is the effect that drinking blood and blood in general has on vampires and on humans in both shows. The Vampire Diaries, well, vampires drink blood because they're thirsty. Humans drink vampire blood to heal, and that's it. That's pretty much it. In True Blood, the blood has way more power. On vampires, for sure, but mostly and especially on humans, because it makes them stronger, makes them heal fast, but also it makes them dream about the vampires who gave them blood. It makes them attracted sexually to them, having erotic dreams, and also it makes them addicted to vampire blood, making them kind of crazy, definitely crazy, and very sexually active. But yeah, mostly crazy, doing things that they wouldn't normally do just because they're really on drugs. They're drugs. So in fact, in True Blood, vampire blood is a drug called V. And you'll see more of this in the first season of the show. This is it for this video. Hope you liked it. If so, leave a link down below. And if you have more differences, why True Blood is better than the Vampire Diaries, please comment down below, and do the same if you think that the Vampire Diaries is better than True Blood. But also, if you never watched True Blood, please do, because it's such a good show. And if you want another video like this one, where maybe I say what True Blood and the Vampire Diaries have in common, comment down below, please. Tell me what you want me to talk about, because I could talk about vampires forever. I truly do. Without further ado, see you next time. Bye!